Welcome to Bleav in 76ers with your hosts, former 76ers point guard Eric Snow and two Sixers fanatics in Marcus and Teja Dash.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Bleav in 76ers podcast. I'm Marcus Dash here with my brother Teja Dash. Eric is still off and he'll be back soon, and we'll get talking on all things 76ers with Eric when he does get back. But today we have a special episode. Obviously, all the draft talk is surrounded by two guys, but one main guy for our slot at number 3, because the other guy's probably going to go before us, is Ace Bailey. So today we have a special guest, a guy who is a 76ers fan, while also being a host of a Rutgers podcast. So a perfect mix.
What a year.
Yeah, right? Oh, yeah. What a year.
It makes up for the bad Rutgers year, but now he gets to enjoy this.
The number 3 pick, yeah, for sure. But we're going to bring on Mike Broadbent, a host of the Night Report, so a guy who covers Rutgers as a 76ers fan, so he knows what the Sixers need, and he also has been seeing the Ace Bailey kind of project play out through his eyes over the last year or so, and also probably did a lot of research on his high school tape too, which we haven't done a lot of high school tape research on him. But so we're going to bring on Mike Broadbent to talk all things Ace Bailey. What's up, Mike? How you doing, buddy?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on, fellas.
Of course, man. Of course.
Oh, man, so you're ace in the hole.
Oh man, the ace puns are going to be flying.
Amazing. I'm starting to just think of them right now. I'm just trying to get them all. The easy picking fruit first.
Yep.
So, Mike, obviously, number 3 pick happens, and right away you have 76ers fans making it seem like it's a bad thing, right? Like, oh, I don't want Ace. Ace sucks. He's awful. Trade out or get VJ Edgecombe. It's the only 2 options there. It's like, okay, you've been following this guy for a year, and you probably did even more high school research on this guy than we have. Just as a Rutgers fan, what do we need to know about Ace Bailey? What do Sixers fans need to know about Ace Bailey?
So Ace Bailey is an elite shot maker. He will take some of the most audacious shots you've ever seen from a college prospect and hit them with more regularity than anybody has any business doing. He has an offensive bag that is so deep, you could tell that like every move that he puts out there, he's practiced 10,000 times on the court. He's a very hard worker. He is a guy who wanted to come in and have a college experience and do something different, set a tone and build a legacy for himself rather than just go to a blue blood. He has just elite athleticism. He is super long, as you've seen from his measurements. I think he has a standing reach of 8'11". I think his wingspan is 7'2"-ish. He measured in a little bit shorter. I think he's 6'7.5", somewhere around there. I don't know why the NBA switched from the shoes measurements to the non-shoes measurements. Everyone gets all up in arms, whereas a few years ago he would have measured in at 6'9", but now he's 6'7.5".
He's also 18, so he's got a few more years of the growth spurt.
Exactly. He's 18. He's a young player for his class. He doesn't turn 18. He doesn't turn 19, until August. So he's going to be 18 on draft day. He is a kid that, like, the sky is the limit. I think he has the highest ceiling in this class. If everything clicks for him, I think we could be talking about a all NBA type player, a 25-point scorer. And honestly, he doesn't get enough credit for his defensive abilities too. He's an elite help defender. He might not be, he's got to add some weight to his frame for sure. I think I don't know what his weight that he measured in at, but I'd say it's probably right around 200 pounds. Yeah. Once he adds some solid weight to his frame, I think he can be an elite on-ball defender too, because he's just so quick, so long, and he's got so many chase down blocks on his tape from Rutgers. There was a specific play in the scrimmage against St. John's where he closed out from the paint to the 3-point line in a single leap. For a corner 3. I'm not sure how easy that tape is going to be, but that was like the first time I saw him live, and that was my oh shit moment, because he can eat up space on the court with just cat-like quickness. It's insane.
I'm in.
Now, one of the things that I've seen, just there's so much like negative stuff about him, and I don't know why he gets all this negative pub. And obviously, too, you're right. There's certain fans, parts of the sect, that want to be able to knock him and say, oh, we shouldn't draft him at 3 because of this. One of the complaints I saw, you mentioned his weight, whereas VJ Edgecombe, he was he weighed about like 190 or 180, and he's gained like 13 pounds since the season of muscle, whereas Ace Bailey's on the other side of that, where his player profile at Rutgers was 210, he came to the combine weighing 202, so he's lost weight. And obviously he wasn't a big guy, so he didn't really need to lose weight. So as people are trying to make connections there, like, oh, VJ Edgecombe's like in the weight room getting big, where Ace is not, not doing that. But no one knows what's going on with players. And plus, college profiles, high school profiles, they all make up. They give you they add an inch and they add 10 pounds to a lot of these guys, just to make them look more vicious in the player profile, I guess. But talk about the negatives of Ace Bailey, right? Because lots of love of what you said there. But what are the kind of things that stand out to you that can be something that he may need to be coached out of? Some habits he may need to be coached out of going into the NBA. Obviously, his interview this past weekend, he says he doesn't have there's no downside to him. I ain't got none, big dog. Which was hilarious, and a lot of Sixers fans didn't like his answer to that. It's like, oh man, even more.
That's like the most Philly answer of all time. Like,
I know.
And if you watch it, it's clearly like a joke. He's clearly like saying it in jest, but the quote itself on text looks cocky and looks a little off-putting. But when you hear it in the context of how he said it, a lot of things get lost in translation there.
Mm-hmm. So, my question is to you, to someone who did cover him. What would you say are some of the habits that he kind of needs to get out of when he goes to the NBA? Obviously, different roster construction. Rutgers, it's just him and Harper kind of carrying the load there. Whereas the NBA, when the Sixers specifically, you're not going to have to do that. So, what would you say some of the habits he needs to get out of the NBA?
So I think the number one thing he has to get better on is tightening up his handle. He lost way too many drives, when things were kind of muddy for him, when guys were, when he's especially trying to go into a crowded paint, he'd lose the ball way more often than he should. I think part of that is because he's so tall and, having a tight handle at 6'8" is not easy, as we've seen. So that's my number one thing, is tightening up the handle. He can be very streaky. If you look at some of his game logs, like if you look at, let's say his Northwestern game or his Indiana game, you're going to look and see just a ton of volume and a ton of, difficult shots made. But there were games where he went like 2 for 15 and then he was sat down in like the final 8 minutes because he was just off that night. So I think consistency is going to be a key thing to zero in on as well, because he didn't have that this year. I think Dillon was a far more consistent player night to night, but Ace had those 39-point, 37-point games where he was the reason we won, or the reason we stayed in games. So I think that's the same for most kids who are 18, is being more consistent. That's how you gain success in the NBA. It's not about having that one game where you scored 45. It's being that player every night for your team. But tightening the handle and being more consistent are the number one and number two things for me in terms of his improvement in the NBA.
I have a follow-up to that too, because in going down the rabbit hole of weaknesses, because we are a negative fan base in a negative society, so that's it's a double negative that doesn't cross each other out. So I've read some fans say that it's not all his fault that he wasn't asked to do certain things, or like the really poor supporting cast of Rutgers kind of forced him to shot frenzies like that, to have to go 2 for 15. Otherwise he could have relied on maybe someone else to carry the torch for a little bit while he's, having a slump. What do you think about those kind of comments?
They're 100% accurate. Like, if you look at what happened throughout Rutgers season, Ace came into the year, he had like a minor tweak that he sat out the first few games for. So he came in a little banged up. Dylan Harper had a few bad bouts this year. One, he rolled his ankle really bad against Penn State, was able to finish out the game, but he missed a few games for that. He had a really bad bout of the flu. He lost like 10 pounds in the middle of December. So he basically missed a month of the year because of the flu, getting back to 100%. So Ace was really leaned on in those two periods of time to just kind of like be the guy. So there was a lot of, like Rutgers fans have had a problem with Steve Pikiell's offense for his entire tenure at Rutgers, because it's very basic. They're running the same few plays. It's a lot of ISO ball. This is the same way it was under Ron Harper Jr. and Geo Baker, and those names might not be familiar to you guys, to Sixers fans, but this has been like the same general concept for a long time. Steve Pikiell likes to make things into a rock fight. Ideally, he'd win every game 65-60 on a defensive slugfest. So trying to get freshmen to play that way wasn't something he was able to do, especially 2
Yeah.
top 3 picks. So in short, yeah, Ace was expected to kind of just like make his own shot for most of the offense that he was generating. So obviously, you know, when you don't have many clean looks, or you don't have things that are kind of like drawn up for you, and you know, it's going to look ugly sometimes because he was kind of expecting him to make his own shot. So I think when he's playing amongst players who are of his caliber, he's going to get a lot more open looks and things are going to look a lot more fluid for him. Whereas this year it was just kind of like fighting for almost everything.
Okay.
Now, player comps. That's another thing that you know, you see a lot of, right? Kevin Durant, Paul George. Those are the player comps for him that he's given himself. You see Kevin Durant also says that about him, saying he does see himself in Ace Bailey, which is, you know, it's pretty big coming from the guy himself. A lot of his players don't like to give comparisons in general, let alone themselves.
Yeah.
But then you have our fan base, or the ones who are anti-Ace, saying, I don't want MPJ on our team. And if you know, if you asked fans last year that adding MPJ to this team, everybody would love that. So I don't understand why all of a sudden MPJ is such a bad thing. Because that's the worst he can be is Michael Porter Jr., then I would take that in a heartbeat.
MPJ, Rashard Lewis, Danny Granger, I'll take any of them.
Seriously, I don't understand why there's such an outrage on some of these player comps here. Because even if that's the worst of the worst, I would take that any day. But from what you see, what are the best kind of player comps from? Give me the high and give me the low of what you see Ace Bailey being in the NBA.
So if he hits his ceiling, he can be a Tracy McGrady or Kevin Durant type offensive player. Now, if we're talking about the floor, I think I don't think Brandon Miller is necessarily a floor case, but I think when you bring out Michael Porter Jr., I can see where people see the comparisons there, because Michael Porter Jr. has essentially just become like a, you know, it's like a Maserati version of like a corner 3 guy at this point.
Yeah.
But I think the main difference is that Ace Bailey gives a shit. And I'm sorry, Carson on the show, I don't know if we can do that, but like he's not gonna ever stop working, where I think, you know, part of why Michael Porter Jr. hasn't really worked out, other than the obvious injuries that he's dealt with throughout his careers, I think he's kind of like coasted a bit on his talents. I don't think Ace is going to be that tight. He doesn't have that kind of makeup. I think he's going to always be one of your hardest workers, which is something that you want to see in your potential star players. Right. So I think high end, you know, I've heard the Rashard Lewis. I don't think he's going to be quite the defensive stopper that Danny Granger was, but I can see those archetypes. But I think high level, Tracy McGrady, Kevin Durant; low level, Brandon Miller, Michael Porter Jr. That's probably fair. And maybe that's just like my homerism coming out, but those are the comps that make sense to me after watching every game, some of them multiple times, that Ace has played, not only in college for Rutgers, but in the high school level as well.
And really, some of those depend on like 2 main things, in my opinion. It's him growing another inch and him tightening up his handles.
Yeah.
If he can do those 2 things, he starts to get closer to at least the McGrady, because McGrady's handles they're nasty for a guy that size, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Same thing.
McGrady won't always point forward for his teams, right? So like that'd be a big step up for a. I don't even like need that. Just become like an adequate passer. Like don't be a bad passer, really, and you're fine. You just don't be bad at something.
Yeah, no, he's an underrated passer as well. He sees the floor really well. I don't understand the hate for him. I think people were just kind of like waiting for something on some of these top guys, and because he measured in, you know, people were expecting to see 6'10", and they saw 6'7.5", and I think that kind of became open season to kind of tear the guy down.
A question between him and Harper real fast. Like, who do you, because both their weaknesses are pretty out in the open at this point of this process. Everyone's on a megaphone. What do you think? What are you more confident in developing first? Harper's 3-point jumper or Ace's handle and playmaking?
Oh, Harper's 3-pointer for sure.
You think that will develop quickly?
I think Harper was a very streaky shooter. Like if you look at some of his game logs, like there were games where he went like 6 of 8 from 3. Like he shot a decent amount of threes, and he suffered from kind of the same thing where he didn't get a lot of open looks, but he would just pull up in transition with 100% confidence and knock down shots. There was a shot against Seton Hall, big rivalry game. Rutgers had no business playing down as far as they did to him, but he hit a game-winning 3 as as the buzzer went off, that was kind of his signature moment of the year. But if you look at what he did against like Alabama out in Vegas, like he scored like almost 40 points, hit a ton of threes. Like I think his 3-point shot making is an underrated element of his game. I think it's further along than people are giving him credit for.
Was the reason why he's the number 2 pick at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's solidified quite a bit too since the lottery was solidified.
Do you buy all the people saying that either if the Spurs draft him or the Sixers draft him, he could start at 3? Do you buy that?
Probably not. I don't think he's quite there yet. He's a good athlete, but he's not a great athlete. I think he'd have. I think he's got the body to kind of hold up, but over an 82 game season, defending guys, who are 30 years old, 6'8", like 235, I don't know if you'd hold up at the 3. Ideally, you want to probably have him as your combo guard. You could probably play point or the 2. I wouldn't play him at the 3. Maybe in certain like rotations it would work, but not as like a starter at 3. No.
Okay.
Now with the if the Sixers were to draft Ace, I've seen a lot of Sixers fans that say like don't draft him because he's not gonna be able to start day 1. That he would be below. If Oubre does opt in, he would be behind Oubre at the 3, which I don't necessarily buy. But talking about his, I guess, versatility. I mean, he could play 3 and 4. You can kind of put him at both. I know 6'7", whatever. Shoes on about 6'9", so that's fine as a 4. But versatility-wise, he could play couple with him at 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think you'd ideally want him at 3, but I think he could cosplay as a 4 when you need him to. Once he kind of bulks up, I think he'd be a lot more solidified there as like a modern 4. But I think to start, I think you want to bring him along slow. I don't think you want to throw all that at him because he does need some development, but you're really just like playing for the upside here. I mean, I think you'd be better off, coming off the bench for the first half of his rookie season and then kind of learning from the guys.
Maybe even all of it.
Yeah, even all of it. And by the time the playoffs roll around, he could be a key contributor, your 6th man off the bench, and then year 2, he's a starter solidified at 3.
I think having these guys, because we're a weird team. Like same with the Spurs too. We're both contending teams in Dallas. Like top 3 teams should be contending for like top half playoff seeds next year. All 3 teams should be. And that's a unique position for a rookie to be in. And I always go back to, dare I say, Ben Simmons, who talked like later on about all the pressure of a rookie to come in to a team on the cusp with a lot of high aspirations and how much pressure it was and how in a way he'd rather have played for like a bottom feeder so he could like develop his game instead of coming in being like, okay, I actually have to always do the right things. I have to win. Right. So that's why I'd like it if Ace just came and didn't have that. Okay. Like you're starting next to Paul George, Embiid and Maxey, dude, you got to make it work. It's like, okay. Whereas like if he just comes in, has his role, develops his game for 15, 20 minutes a game, like I think it would just suit him so much better and take some of that pressure to have to be a key cog in the championship system off his back a bit. I totally agree with that.
And what better guy to learn from than Paul George for a guy with
the
archetype, and that's his favorite player too. So that would be a huge mentor role that
Paul. And he's a huge fan.
Yeah, and they're both fans of each other, and I think this would give Paul George the ability to kind of gracefully fade into his twilight years of his career, having basically like a younger version of himself on the court and be able to tell him all the things that took him 6 years to learn. Maybe he can learn a little quicker from a guy who's been there, done that, and the same size, same kind of archetype. So
yeah, having both of them together would be pretty cool, just to be able to, like you said, like kind of right off to the sunset, make that mega money that he's making at the end of his career while also coaching up Ace. One of the things that we talked about earlier before we came on, and Teja and I talked about it last week, was the fact that Ace Bailey gets all this kind of the hoopla about Rutgers being the face of a team that didn't even make the tournament. While Dylan Harper is sitting pretty at the number two slot. No one's saying a word about the team failing under his helm. When What do you make of that, being a person who covered Rutgers? I mean, like, why is Ace getting all the blame here? I know you mentioned they both of them were out at Sapir's time during the year, but it doesn't seem too fair that Ace is getting all the blame for this from all these fans out there.
No, I mean, it's not fair. I think Dylan was the primary playmaker on this team because he was, the lead guard, and given he's a more advanced player at this point, both physically and from a basketball standpoint. I don't think either of those guys should get, if you're cutting up slices of blame pie, their slices shouldn't be larger than 1% each. Like they were not the reason this team didn't succeed this year. We could go the short version or the long version. I'll go with the short version for you guys. The team they built around those guys was basically like a low mid-major. We got guys from like Princeton and Merrimack, and we're starting guys who had like no offers coming out of high school, or like very few offers. They started 4 freshmen at one point. Lathan Somerville, the center that we had as a true freshman, he had no defensive game, so we're just getting eaten alive on the inside. And like I said, Steve Pikiell wants to play defensive basketball, and he has this big mantra, keeping teams under the speed limit, which is 65 points. And I think we averaged like 78 points allowed this year, which is by far the most he's ever allowed. So
reckless driving.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a very reckless driving. So we went from wanting to keep. We were averaging probably like 66 points allowed last year. So it's a big drop off there because his system is too complex for 4 freshmen to get in and learn. So we have, the transfers that were brought in because we didn't have really great NIL they were basically useless. And that's not, I'm not trying to be mean, but these guys, we just couldn't form a team around the transfer. So they just played a lot of freshmen most of the year. And, honestly, by the time December rolled around, we were already kind of out of it. So it was I think a sign of their integrity for Ace and Dylan that they didn't kind of pack it in, which a lot of guys do when things aren't going well. So I think that's a sign of their maturity that they gutted it out. They were playing in the Big Ten tournament as we were like a 14 seed, and that we lost the game in overtime to USC. But I think they should be kind of commended for sticking it out more than dissected for the season not going the way that we would have hoped, because they were not the reasons. They were the only reason that we weren't a 5-win team last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember watching that game against USC in the Big Ten tournament. I actually called you during that game. Teja told you to put it on. You're like, dude, I'm not watching these guys until I know we have the pick.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier both guys. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I don't have anything.
So you mentioned both guys missed time this year. Who looked better when the other guy was out?
I would say Ace probably, because Dylan was out twice. So it's tough to know like when he was ever at 100% this year with the ankle situation and the flu. But if you look at like the 2 games I'll point you to, if you want to see like, what Ace could be at the highest end, look at his Northwestern game, look at his Indiana game. Both those games Dylan didn't play in, and he was the only reason that we were even competing in those games. Against Indiana, we ended up losing by 10, but he was 16 for 29, 4 of 8 from 3. He scored 39 points, had 8 rebounds, 4 blocks, 1 steal, only 1 foul, and he played 38 minutes on the road.
Wow.
Like the first half was just basically like Indiana and Rutgers basketball is kind of like a rivalry. Rutgers has kind of owned them for the last 5-6 years. And so they were ready to just like eat our team alive. And he quieted that Bloomington crowd for most of the game until things kind of got away from them at the end. And then if you look at his Northwestern game, he played 35 minutes, 13 of 20 shooting, 5 of 8 from 3, 6 rebounds, 3 blocks, and 37 points. So like those are the 2 games where if you want to just like, get high on your own supply and see what the absolute ceiling of a guy like Ace Bailey could be, those are the kind of games. And honestly, he had the green light to just kind of go from the start, and
he had every
to
point.
Without he had to be the guy.
Yeah.
He scored more than half our points against Indiana, and he scored more than half our point, or almost half our points against Northwestern too.
Wow.
Unreal. So obviously you are a Rutgers guy, and you're a Sixers fan. So if you had your druthers at pick number 3, who would be the pick for you?
Are we assuming that Coop and
Yeah,
Dillon are
let's say
ones to go?
Flag and Harper off the board.
I would go Ace Bailey because you want to go ceiling hunting when you have this opportunity. You hope you're not in this position again anytime in the near future. And not that we're trying to fit to a roster, but we have if we're talking tiebreakers here, I think it's an easy tiebreaker that we could use a scoring wing with the defensive upside. I think he can be a true elite 3-and-D guy. Not that we can box him in that way, but he could be an elite defender, an elite scorer in the NBA. And guys who could be both those things are very rare as prospects. I think he would have been the number 1 pick easily last year, which isn't saying much. I think Dillon would have been as well. I think BJ Edgecombe might have been the number 1 pick last year too. Obviously Cooper Flag would have been. So I think you have such a unique opportunity here that you just got to take the guy and develop him. What would you guys do? I know that we're still kind of in the process, but would you guys trade the pick, go Ace Bailey, go VJ? What's your guys' take right now?
I'm Ace all the way. I've been an Ace guy for a while. That was my number 2 guy in this draft.
Wow.
Pretty much, yeah. That was the guy I wanted for a while. So yeah, I would go Ace. But I was on a Jazz podcast the other day, and I don't know what these people think we're trying to do. They're like, oh, would you do Paul George and the number 3 pick for like John Collins? All these bums there, Tim. Like, wait, I was like, I'm not salary dumping Paul George with the number 3 pick. I was like, I will do Lauri number 5 for PG and 3. That's what I would do. But I don't think Danny Ainge would do that. So that would probably be the only other outside of Ace. That would probably be my next thing. Outside of that, I don't want to do anything else. But
I don't know. I honestly don't know if he wouldn't do that because they're both huge contracts. Lauri's not a good deal anymore. He was everyone's sweetheart when he was making 23 a year, but now he's making like 50 a year, man. He's making a lot of money.
But he's also like 10 years younger than Paul George. That's the thing there.
He is, but in the end, you're not doing it for that. Like, you're not winning with Lauri and Ace. You're not winning with Paul George and Ace. So like for him, it's really all about the 18-year-old who's going to be in this league in 10 years from now, right? Like, you're doing it all for him. That's a long game trade. That's 100% a long game trade. And if he did that, that'd be why he did it. I'm Ace right now, but I'm always I'm a trader, man. So I'm a dealer. So I'm always open. I'm not the guy who's saying like Ace or bust. Another card reference. I think it's if it's a good deal, then I'm down to take it. Some of those Rocket deals are appealing. Ace Bailey could be Jabari Smith, and he's maybe available for trade. So like, you have another guy who's still like 21 or 22 years old who averaged 13 and 7 in the league already. So that's an enticing deal for me, but I don't know if I would do it, but it's, tempting.
Yeah, he's the guy for a floor outcome that I forgot about. That was another guy who he's been compared to. I don't see it as much, but I could definitely understand where people are coming from there. I think the salary cap relief that a potential like starting high level starter at 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 years old that, would bring that the Sixers desperately need. They need a high level starter who's on a rookie wage scale. And, thankfully we have McCain as well, because those two guys could be so important to the team if they expect to be competitive in the next few years. Assuming, injuries break our way for once instead of, hold us back. But, yeah, the trades that some of my Nets friends are throwing around are totally insane.
Cam Johnson.
Like, would you take Cam Johnson and 8 and 19 and 27? It's like, what does this provide us with? Like, think about it. Like, we have, this has to make sense for both sides, not just your fever dream here.
Cam Johnson's the Brooklyn Nets version of the Lakers THT back in the day. They used to throw THT in every single bet to get like every single superstar available.
Yep.
Like, THT for John Morant. Come on, man, he's awesome. Like, dude, come on. Like, okay, Cam Johnson's a good player, but he's reached his ceiling. He's there, right? We know what he is, and he's a good player. But he's making he's not even like a great deal. He's making a fair contract for being a good player. So, I mean, I don't understand like that appeal there. I get it if you make it worth it, but for the third pick, man, like, shoosh. Yeah,
people have to realize that, we're holding the cards here to make another ace reference, but you have to pay up. You can't expect us to just go with like a relatively fair deal. You have to really make it appetizing.
100%. It's not. it's extremely rare to trade a top 3 pick.
Yeah.
Because you have to just come out of the gates and just woo someone, with like the full wine and dine package.
And
It's
if
not
you do, you don't want to move back far, like what the Sixers did. RIP Markelle Fultz in, what was that, 2017? And we don't talk about the before times often.
Who?
But yeah, exactly. But yeah, if you're moving back and there's it's like a 3 or 4 man draft, you don't want to fall out of that window. You want to kind of stay there. So you have to.
That's why the Jazz would be the most appealing
Mm-hmm.
trade partner. Maybe 8, but like I wouldn't. 5 would be a pretty good sweet spot for me.
5 keeps us in that same kind of tier, whereas if you go to 10, like the Rockets pick, you go to 10, that takes us in a totally different avenue altogether. And also, to Jabari Smith, he's a free agent in 2 years, and you have to sign him in 2 years. So that's also
true.
Another thing too, which that took me off the whole Jabari Smith Rockets thing, the 10 and having to sign him in 2 years.
Now, if you could con the Hornets into being like, if the Hornets are absolutely in love with one of VJ or Bailey, and they're not happy about the other choice, you can con them about moving one up. And you're securing their guy going. That's also if we love both guys. If we love both guys, then that's a match made in heaven. They come up 1, we get like a future first or something out of them in the package, and then we just move back 1 for a guy we like, pretty much like neck and neck, right? So that would be a good win for us too.
Yeah, I don't know if this means anything, but I listen to the Bill Simmons podcast a lot, and he is close to Daryl Morey from their Sloan conference days, and he has been beating the drum that VJ Edgecombe is a Daryl Morey type guy, and that Ace Bailey doesn't really fit the archetype of what Morey looks for. So I just want to put that out there. I don't know if it's actually what's going to happen or not, but he's been pretty steadfast about VJ Edgecombe being a guy Daryl Morey would probably like. So.
His drafting's been good. So I honestly, at the end of the day, even though I like my guy, and we all have our guys and we get territorial about them, by that time, we're going to be real territorial. We have like lots of stock in our guys at that point. But I do trust, if there's one thing I do trust, it's our drafting and our scouting department. It's been great. I can't argue with our recent scouting, our recent draft picks. We've hit home runs, a lot of them. So if they do decide that, I'll ultimately, be okay with it.
I will say there are Sixers fans who are Ace fans who are scared about them doing very similar to what we did with Bridges and going with Zaire Smith, kind of the whole the athletic guy versus the shooter type, and them kind of making the same mistake by drafting Edgecombe over Ace, which.
I feel so bad for the Bridges family because they were so hyped. They got the hat. They got the experience of coming home, and then I hate how the NBA does that too. Like, don't make the guys like be able to like do what the NFL does, finalize the trade. Don't make them like have the hat on for 20 minutes, have that.
Embarrassing.
Yeah, like the fact that Kobe Bryant, for example, has like a Hornets hat on his rookie cards and things like that, and that's like his welcome to the NBA moment. Like, I hate that.
Yeah.
Welcome to the business, kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Get tossed around now.
Yep.
Well, yeah, his mom worked in the Sixers organization too, which is also another slap in the face. That whole thing.
Does she still work for the Sixers?
I think I read an article last year. She does not work for the Sixers anymore.
Okay. She definitely didn't give 2 weeks.
No. No. But all right, Mike, we appreciate you coming on here and talking shop with us, man. Well, why don't you give a plug to all the Sixers fans who want to maybe hear more about Ace Bailey from the Rutgers side of things? To give us a plug from some of your podcasts.
Sure, yeah. I host the Night Report podcast, which is a podcast on the Bleav podcast network. We did a breakdown of the Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey post-lottery draft outlook. That was last week on the 14th. So if you want to kind of hear a Rutgers-centric view on potentially Dylan to the Spurs, Ace to the Sixers, we did like 40 minutes on that last week. So check that out. And we'll have everything leading up to the draft, updates, if the picks get traded, kind of the outlook on those guys. But I'm a Sixers fan, like I said, Philly sports fan in general. So taking it from a slant of wanting one of these guys on the Sixers too. So Thanks for having me on, fellas, and let's hopefully we can reel in ace. I know that the draft is I know that the draft is still about a month away, and a lot of things can happen. But
Yeah.
I hope they don't trade for an aging star personally, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think the reports of that, it kind of contradicts everything that's been reported that we want to get younger, want to have more athletic guys around the stars on the team. So I don't really buy the whole KD thing. Hopefully it doesn't happen. But Mike, we appreciate you coming on, buddy, and we'll love talking to you again. Hopefully after the Sixers draft Ace, or maybe they trade up for Dylan Harper. But if we do, we'd love to have you on to talk about his fit in Philadelphia.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me again, guys.
Yeah, man.
Before we get out of here, we got to talk about more rumors, and we're going to be hearing more rumors for the next month about everything that's going on in Philadelphia. But let's begin with the first rumor, and this one's going to kind of put the water out to this initial thing. But we'll go. So Jonathan Givany from the ESPN had a mock draft yesterday, and his mock draft had the Sixers taking Ace Bailey with the number 3 pick. But also in that same report, Givany noted that some teams expect the Sixers to be active in trade talks and could package the 3rd overall selection with Paul George for players such as Kevin Durant and Lauri Markkanen. And then yesterday, it was reported after this, a couple hours later after this, the Sixers have given no consideration to possibly trading Paul George and the 3rd overall pick for players such as Kevin Durant or Lauri Markkanen. Quote, a league source told Philly Voice that the team has given no consideration to such possibilities to date. The team appears singularly focused on adding a premium young talent to a core featuring 24-year-old Tyrese Maxey, 21-year-old Jared McCain, and 24-year-old upcoming restricted free agent Quentin Grimes, rather than using the pick as a tool to upgrade its veteran base. Which pretty notable. They mentioned just the 3 young guys. They didn't mention Embiid or Paul George in that. But I guess they don't want to add. Essentially, they want to add an older guy to what we already have with the older dudes. They want to add another young guy. But we know Daryl Morey likes to trade. Daryl Morey is also, he could be feeling the pressure and the heat of wanting to win right now, because that'd be the move to bring in a veteran to save your butt. But it seems that they're not doing that. If you had to place a bet here, do you think how much I guess credence do you give this report, the initial report that we were interested in going for the Durants, the Giannis's, or the Lauris, of adding a veteran presence?
Specifically names, I don't know, but Morey's always listening to offers. His phone's always open. He says as much. Like, he's always down to listen, and that's fine. I don't mind that. I like that. I don't know about those specific names, because Durant would just be odd at this point, because I don't even know what pick they have. So you're taking yourself completely out of getting any kind of young talent if you do that deal, right? He's even, we're talking about being old. It's like you don't even get any years back on that one. That's a tough one. And then you have injury risk. Like, he's a risk too. So he's had just as many injuries, bigger injuries, I'd say, consistent over his career than Paul George, probably pretty equal. Markkanen's interesting. I don't know how well their contracts are very similar. They're both making a lot of money. Markkanen is like 28, which is great, but he's taller. And I don't know how well he's going to age in that time. Like, how good, Paul George looked great at that 32 age, but I don't know how great Markkanen's going to look when he's like 31, 32. I don't know how he's going to age. He can play 4 now, but when he's like 31, 32, is he going to be able to guard athletic 4s? I don't think so. So that's a tough one to me, because he did have a rough year last year, and that drove his value down. Of course, once he got all that money, he had a bad year. That sucks for them. I still would not be anti, just because you also only move back to 5. So you're not going back that far. You still get a very young talent. You don't get the top end. I think, more or less people have called it a 4-person draft, right? But that one is enticing, because you're still getting a comparable player to George, and then you're getting still really young talent. So that one I'm not totally ruling out personally, but I do think we end up keeping the pick in the end. It just, I think it actually adds less pressure to Morey to do it too, because you're not extending your timeline, but you're taking a relatively championship window and you're going to Josh Harris and you're being like, I mean, it is a championship window, but now I've also opened up a long-term window. We have multiple windows now. We have the championship window, but right next to it, it's like this long-term window that, it's not a championship level right now, but it could be. Let's see how it develops. So now you have to give, you don't have to give, but Morey can pitch more years to stay to see it through, because now we have to develop Ace Bailey, who's 18, can hardly buy cigarettes, and it's going to have to take a long time to develop, right? I mean, so you have a lot of young guys around him now. We developed guys last year. So it's an interesting way to maybe extend his, time in Philadelphia for Morey.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The kind of pitching a 2-window plan. Like, look, we can have this squad of Maxey, and because all they talked about the last few weeks is health. All we need is health, right? Every team can say that, but that's all we need. We need MB to be healthy. We need Paul George not to get hurt right out the gate. We need Maxey to stay healthy. We need McCain not to tear his meniscus. This year was kind of an outlier, right? Because everybody got injured. It wasn't just Embiid. Everyone got injured, right?
Yeah.
So that's the one pitch. But on the other pitch, like you said, you have a young core, and by drafting Ace Bailey, you add to that young core, and you have Maxey, you have McCain, you have Ace Bailey, you have Quentin Grimes.
Grimes 24.
I know, and so that's 4 dudes where you could say, look, we have this Paul George Embiid window right now to their extension, right? Hopefully they both last. Hopefully, Embiid lasts to his extension. I hope he comes back, and I hope he's as close to his form as his MVP self as possible. But you have that window, and then you have that right alongside of it. You have the Maxey, McCain, Grimes, and Ace Bailey, or whoever they draft at that 3rd pick. So I just think it goes against everything that he's talked about this offseason. I know GMs can say a lot of stuff, but it did seem like in his initial presser, right? We over-indexed on older guys who are good for the playoffs. Yeah. Over-indexed on it. Now they want to go with the younger route. And by going with this younger route, you're building a solid young core around the PG Embiid contracts. And I think it makes sense to stick with the number 3 pick. And also, too, Cavani's report isn't really saying that he's going to do it. It's usually just if you listen to it, it's experts believe that the Sixers will do that. It's because given Morey's history,
yes,
that's what Morey does. Like you said, we all know Morey's a wheeler and dealer. He likes looking for trades and that kind of stuff. But also, Morey's never been in the lottery before, and Morey's never had a top 3 pick before. So this is kind of uncharted territory for Daryl Morey. And like you said, top 3 picks don't get traded. And also, too, Morey's a big social media guy. If he did trade that pick to get Kevin Durant, some Sixers fans would be happy about Durant. I'd be excited about getting Kevin Durant, but it goes against everything you talked about, and it's also double down. You're going double dipping on this whole veteran championship window right now, and that's not going to play well with the large part of this fan base.
The catching in a lot of these like 1-year opt-ins for Cam Johnson's an interesting one too. Just because you get to keep George, you also add Cam Johnson, and you consolidate a lot of these guys that he kind of sounds like regrets signing, because our young guys developed and they developed well. So you add Cam Johnson, you move up Edwards, you move up Bona into the rotation to become like your next man up, which proved like last year that they did play well in spot duty. And you still have the 8th pick overall to draft someone who can still contribute, right? So that's an interesting one too. I'm not totally in favor of that, because I know Nets fans are totally overrating Cam Johnson, but Cam Johnson as like your 5th option on offense, maybe even 6th option if you still have Grimes and try to get Yabusele re-signed, because I assume you're going to get rid of Oubre in that deal to make the salaries work. So Oubre, Gordon, probably Drummond for something like that. But it's an interesting one, because that's an all-in move. And if you could try to sell, we're also going to get the 8th pick overall. So that's no slouch either. So I don't know, that'd be a harder sell for Harris, but another interesting one nonetheless.
Yeah, I think the whole play here with going for the younger guys. Also, you don't have to you're not adding another big contract and having to even contemplate getting close to that floor or whatever. What are they called? The apron.
Yeah.
The apron. So without adding Cam Johnson, just drafting a cost controlled rookie, you're not getting close to this apron business. So
because we can't do much this year besides re-sign our players and draft.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what we're resigned to at this point. Like we're stuck. This is our team. And they were smart for making the moves they did last year in order to just re-sign Grimes. That's pretty much your free agent acquisition is what that is.
And and it proved to be a great one. He looked amazing last year.
Great. It was a great move and another great move to re-sign him. So
yep. And it sounds like all the interviews I've seen with Moore, he's talked about Grimes is staying. And, I think he's going to stay here. And he talks well about Yabu staying as well. So it seems like all those guys who want to stay are going to stay. I want one last thing before we get out of here. In Cavani's mock draft, his 35th pick overall was Ryan Kalkbrenner, the big man from Creighton. Guy can stroke it from deep. Huge, a great 3-point shooter. Also, I think led the Big East in blocks per game. So he does kind of give you some rim protection there. What do you make? So let's say we do go Ace Bailey, right, at pick number 3, since we are talking Ace Bailey in this episode. What position do you think? Okay, let's say Ace Bailey at 3. We re-sign Grimes. We re-sign Yabu. What position would you want us to draft at that 35th pick, or is it more just EPA?
That's tough. 30 picks a pretty good pick. It's pretty high in the second.
35, yeah.
35, sorry. You still have Drummond for one more year unless they're just planning on just packaging him and getting rid of him. Bona looked good, but you do want a real big man. So I see why they would go Kalkbrenner. I mean, he's massive. I would still go BPA, see who's out there. Because, our roster is we're pretty deep all over at that point. We have a lot of guards. We have a lot of wings. We have a lot of bigs. I don't know what you're envisioning with Drummond. If Drummond's as good as gone one way or the other, then yeah, I could say we can go another big, especially with Embiid's health the way it is.
Yeah, I just wanted to share his mock draft here, the second round. Who would be there? So at 35, Ryan Kalkbrenner. But other guys who would be there.
A lot of centers,
yeah. Penn State dude, the Florida guy, but Johnny Broom, the big man from Auburn.
NBA Draft.net has us going Cedric Howard from Washington State.
Okay, what is he, a big man?
6'6". He's a wing.
Oh, okay. It's another wing. I don't see the other wing. Especially we draft Ace Bailey. Do they have us drafting Ace Bailey number 3?
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah.
He says Cedric Howard. Let's see. They have Cedric Howard as the 30th pick in this mock draft.
Okay.
Just have his. Okay, so 6'5" without shoes, 8'10" reach, wingspan 7'2". There's been barely been plenty of buzz. So Coward of late with signs out of Chicago point to him remaining in the draft despite a transfer commitment to Duke for next season. He was going to transfer to Duke, huh? Interesting though. Trajectory from
7'2" wingspan.
D3 to Eastern Washington to what appears to be a guaranteed contract territory is fascinating. Interesting. So he's kind of been all over the place, man. D3 guy, you don't usually see that in that often in NBA.
Yeah, 7'2" wingspan, 8'10" standing reach. He's long.
Mm-hmm. Kind of makes sense going to Clippers so you can be with Derrick Jones.
Yeah. His comp here is James Jones.
Oh, really? Can he stroke it?
It says he's a good catch and shoot.
There you go.
Yeah. Crafty with the ball, hitting own shot without elite burst.
Yeah, honestly, I BPA at that last pick, but yeah, I like Ryan Kalkbrenner is an interesting one. I would love that. And you could put and with that you could put Bona at the 4, and you can have him as your backup. Kalkbrenner as your backup 5, and both guys can block the heck out of the ball. Bona, anybody watched our games last year just saw what he can do. He's a rim protector nightmare, but he doesn't really have an outside shot. Kalkbrenner can stroke it. If you watch any Creighton games, man, he's got a really good shot.
Yeah. Hugo Gonzalez out of Real Madrid, another one.
Yeah, I don't want a guy we have to wait a couple years for,
That's probably to store away the money so we don't have to pay that salary.
Yeah, you can see that too.
I can definitely see that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, whoever it is, it might be an overseas player.
Yeah, might be. We've seen that before with Morey. We've seen some stashes that we've had over the years.
Yeah, we have a pretty full roster anyways. That guy going to even play. It's I mean, tough. Our team's a tough. If we re-sign the right guys,
and some of those
minutes, man,
and some of those guys opt in. Yeah, it's a pretty deep roster.
Real tough avenue for minutes.
Yeah, because I mean, like we didn't expect Justin Edwards to be the guy that he was, right? You usually expect these like late second rounds or UDFA guys to like really hit like they did, and Justin Edwards really did. That was steal last year.
Yeah.
But all right, guys. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed the Rutgers talk and some of the rumors that will be going on here over the next few weeks to a month. Eric will be back soon, so guys, be ready for Snow's return. But yeah, that'll do it for us. We will see you guys next week. We hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Take it easy, everybody.
Later.